So guys, I'm bringing you a new video today. It's been a while. Work's been crazy. Home life's been crazy. So what do I have? First, we're going to talk about China and China's role in the original Cold War. Not this Cold War 2.0 that people are talking about currently, where I do agree China's probably the biggest player. So China had gone through a civil war, and they were communist and they were an ally of the Soviet Union. But that was under Stalin. After Stalin passed and power was passed on, China instead started becoming competitor more so than an ally. And that was basically based on their differences on economy and the type of communism or socialism the countries practiced. But while they were allies, the Chinese received many designs from the Soviets, such as the Tokharovs, Makarovs, SKS, the Mosin Nagant, which is a Type 53, both AKs and AKMs, PPS submachine guns, and that's just a fraction of what they either licensed for use or copied. So what we have here, most of you watching will already know based on the thumbhole stock, is a MAK 90 made in China by Norinco. And what this in my collection is reflective of would be the Chinese Type 56 or AK-56, which is just a Soviet AKM rifle copy designed in 1956 and still used in the PLA Chinese military as recent as the 2000s. I do believe the Chinese military moved on to a different rifle, but they were still using AKs in the 2000s and probably still are. They're one of the, actually I think they got the highest population in the world, and that's a lot of militants to arm. So I'm sure they still in some units use AK rifles. So what you would have seen on the early types of Type 56 would have been an folding spike bayonet, much like an SKS, which, yes, I went out of order for this video. I should have been doing a video on SKS first. However, my guns are at a couple different locations, and I do not have an SKS here. I do, however, have a MAK 90. So, you would have seen a spiked bayonet that would have folded under the barrel, just like an SKS, which this obviously doesn't have. Now, that's because this came in the 90s during a ban. I believe it was Bush's ban. It may have been Clinton's ban. They both banned importation of certain types of rifles from certain countries. So that would have been the main difference. You would have had a cleaning rod under here, and you would have had a spiked bayonet, which this does not have. Now, what it does have is a 1.5 millimeter thick receiver. What it does have is the bolt in the white. It does take high capacity magazines. So for all intents and purposes, this is still very close at the heart of it, being stamped receiver. You see the vented gas tube. That's the same as the military would have had. And right here, you'll see like a Mosin Nagant type front sight, and that would have been what the Chinese military would have used as well. So these rifles were used in most of Asia, Africa, some Slavic states, as well as Middle Eastern states, and so on. You would have seen some probably in the Korean War, Vietnam War, maybe more SKSs probably, but you still would have seen some of these. If you watch current conflicts on the news, you'll see a lot of these around the world still being used today. I'm sure there's some in the Ukraine. There's definitely a lot of them over in Africa. Almost every picture you see of an AK in use today, it seems, in Africa is a Chinese. So that's it, guys. This is my basically stand-in for a Type 56. I consider getting the Palmetto. They made a clone that's a close copy to a Type 56. I thought about buying that. I probably will if they become readily available. I have a couple of these MAK 90s. I figured I'd pull one out. This is a slant cut. And what that means is they cut the receiver for importation so you couldn't put a basic stock on it. I do have one that's a straight cut. Just, again, this is the one that happens to be here with me today. It's a basic AK, stamped receiver. You got the safety there. You have the bolt assembly here. Piston goes down there. Gas comes up, pushes the piston back. Of course, I'm not on camera for that. Gas goes down, pushes the piston up. Typical stuff. It does have a Chinese military sling. However, this is not obviously a military sling swivel because this is a commercial MAK 90. Other than that, I don't know what I may have missed. You should know, based on it being an AKM design, it's 7.62 by 39. It would take the standard 30-round magazine without ribs. Now, this is, of course, the original one for this gun. So it's a 10-rounder for importation, but it takes regular double-stack magazines. So that's it. I am going to roll in some shooting footage. And I'm sure we're going to have more guns from the PLA and the Chinese military coming up shortly. And we may even talk more about the Cold War 2.0 when we see what China decides to do on Taiwan. Okay, guys, until next time, enjoy the shooting footage. Okay, guys, so here we are at the range with my Band Era MAK 90 with the 10-round mag. That's just because that's what this gun came with. I wanted to test it as is. It was new to me. I wanted to function test it. It shot perfect. It had no feeding issues, and it actually grouped pretty well. I'm going to guess the groupings because I'm very familiar with the circle front sight with the hood on it. I'm used to it with Mosins and SKSs. But anyway, guys, here's the shooting. Thank you.